Well, hello there everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for another video. Today I have a fun set of cards to share, all using products from Simon Says Stamp's February 2025 card kit called Distressed Vintage Love Notes. This kit is great for creating Valentine cards, but you can also use it to create cards all year round too. There's an entire pack of Tim Holtz Palette ephemera, which is gorgeous. I used quite a few of those pieces throughout the cards that I'll be sharing. I also used the Vintage Love Notes stamp set and the embossing folder from the kit, as well as some other goodies. So why don't we dive on in and see all of the projects come together. So I'm going to start first with the ephemera. I've picked out quite a few different pieces from this ephemera pack that I'm really excited to play with, and I want to die cut these to create a little panel for my card. As you can see, there's a lot of ephemera in here to choose from. So the two I've chosen are these panels here, and we're going to go ahead and die cut both of these with the Matinee Rectangle Layers die set from Memory Box. This beautiful die set creates a stunning, elegant finish to your die cut panel. So it's got that really nice stitching detail and those little notches in the corners, which are really cute. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut this panel because I've already die cut the one on the left. We'll die cut the second ephemera next. I'm going to pair this up with the Pinnacle Hearts embossing folder from the kit. This is so pretty. It's a great pattern for creating lovely hearts in the background or as the focal point. I'm going to be using some of the cotton candy cardstock that's from the kit to emboss this paper. You can use the embossed design either with the raised surface facing up, or in this case, we're going to actually flip it around and have the design pressed into the paper. That's going to give me a way to be able to add a little bit of color to the raised parts of the paper. So the hearts are going to stay pink, and then the paper is going to get colored with this ink. I'm using Distress inks, and I've picked out a couple of different browns for this panel. I'm going to rub this over the paper in just get a distressed look. I don't want to cover this completely, and I am letting a little bit of the ink fall into the embossed hearts just a little bit, again, to add that little bit of distressing. This creates a really neat texture and makes those hearts pop beautifully. That brown is also adding to that nice vintage feel of the card. So I'm going to attach this card panel onto my A2 card. I'm just making this from some white cardstock. And the adhesive I'm using today is Terrific Tape from Simon Says Stamp. The reason I've chosen this adhesive is because this embossed panel has some different levels of dimension to it. So I really want to make sure that whatever adhesive I use really holds this down onto my cardstock, because the entire paper is not flush to the card. I do want to tie a bit of ribbon around the bottom of my card. So I've picked out this white sheer ribbon. I thought that would look really cute. I tied that into a little bow, and this is a top folding A2 card, so the ribbon just ties around the whole front panel and you can still open and close it easily. So I'm going to attach my little floral panel here into the center using some foam tape to pop that up. That gives it a little bit of dimension off of the background. And then that ribbon I'll just trim down so that the tails are a little bit shorter. This card looks gorgeous as is, but I thought it would be fun to add a little extra touch of something special. And that is some of this really cool cellophane tape. These are stickers from Tim Holtz's collection, and they worked perfectly to put a strip of this over top of that tape that's on the ephemera piece. That tape is just printed, but I thought it would be fun to have an actual piece of that cello tape. So that's why I pulled this pack out. It's got a ton of different sizes, so you can add these and tape actual embellishments if you wanted to your projects. It's really fun. So I'm going to take the stamp set now. This is the Distressed Vintage Love Notes stamp set. I'm trying to decide which greeting I want to use from this stamp set. There are a lot to choose from. So in the end, I decided to go with this small script, Missing You. I thought that would be simple and not hide too much of that beautiful floral. So to stamp this onto some dark chocolate cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, I'm going to bring in a powder tool and prep the surface of my paper before taking my embossing ink and stamping that sentiment on top. Now I can take my embossing powder and sprinkle that over the wet ink. I have chosen our Simon Says Stamp cream embossing powder because that does have a little bit of a softer finish instead of the white. I'll use my heat tool to set that, and then I did cut this sentiment out. I used my scissors to fussy cut it, but there are coordinating dies for the stamp set. I just don't have them, but they would be a great add-on purchase if you're looking to utilize the stamp set a lot. It's nice to have the coordinating dies. So I'm going to wrap things up by adding a little bit of shimmer. I pulled out this distressed mica stain and I'm going to splatter this across my paper, and I'm allowing this to go onto the front panel as well as the background of my card. I want to have that inky feel to this, make it look a little bit more worn and distressed, and I really liked how that turned out. Got a little couple touches of other colors here and there, but generally this is a very pink card and I was very happy with how it turned out. It's very pretty and elegant. I love too that this is a missing you card, so even though you could turn this into a Valentine's, it is also great for sending at any time of the year. All right, so now let's try another one, but we're going to change up the colors of this inky technique. So I've done the embossing on my paper. This is that same cotton candy with the Pinnacle Hearts, and I'm just going to take some purple now. This is shaded lilac. Then I brought in a little bit darker color. I'm going to use Dusty Concord for this, just to add a little bit more of a muted purple. And then finally, I'm going to bring in some brown just to add a little bit of that vintage feel and tone that purple down just a little bit. That's going to give me this really cool background. I love how it pulls in the purple colors of the flowers on the ephemera piece that I've chosen. So just that little touch of purple was the perfect way to add that extra bit of something special to the background. Now, similar to the first card, I am going to tie a bit of ribbon around my piece, but instead of the card base, I'm actually going to tie it around the ephemera. And this is a small, thin piece of sheer ribbon in a blue color. Again, trying to pull in some of the colors from the ephemera pack, and I really liked how that added just an extra pop of color to the corner. My ephemera panel is going to get popped up, but first I want to add a little bit of splatter to this as well. This time I'm going to use a silver, and I really liked how this added to the cool tones that are in this project. Now at first I splattered onto both pieces, and then I decided I wanted a little bit more on the background but not on the ephemera piece. So I just removed that because I hadn't glued it down yet, and I'm now going to splatter a little bit more of that silver across the card. So now I can pop up my panel onto my card base. And for the sentiment, I did choose one of the greetings from the stamp set, and I embossed it with the cream powder, but this time it says adore you instead of missing you. So just changed it up a little bit, but it's a very similar effect. And so this card would be perfect for giving to somebody you love. Check out that beautiful sparkle with the shimmer splatter and then that cello tape. I love that. That's a great finishing touch on this project. So these two cards are stunning with that embossed background. It makes the ephemera panel pop off of the card. I love it. So now I'm going to show you another technique. We're going to use the embossing folder again in more ephemera and the stamps, but we're going to get a completely different look this time. All right, so I'm pulling out one of the ephemera pieces and I've put this into my MISTI tool. We're going to stamp with this large floral cluster. This piece is so intricate and I thought it would look pretty stamped on top of this ephemera piece. There is a full-size pad of Simon Says Stamp VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink in your kit, and this is a fantastic ink for detailed stamps like this. Because it's a pigment ink, it is going to stamp and capture the details of these images so much more beautifully than if you were to use a dye ink. A dye ink is going to soak into your paper versus a pigment ink such as this, it's going to sit on top. So you're not going to have that wicking from the dye ink as it soaks into the paper, versus the pigment ink is going to give you that really nice crisp finish. And what's nice about this pigment ink is that it does dry pretty quickly. So I can move on to doing some additional stamping and ink blending and not have to worry about this smudging. So I am stamping the music notes from the stamp set with some distress ink. Because I want this background to look a little bit more distressed, I did make sure to use the distress ink. Distress inks don't stamp quite as crisp, and so because of that, I wanted to use this ink because that's going to give me that worn effect. Okay, so now I'm bringing in some of the distress watercolor pencils. You get 3 of them in your kit. Each kit has a slight variation of the colors. So I have ripe persimmon, pine needles, and also gathered twigs. But these were a great color combination to use for the flowers and leaves. And I love being able to utilize a water brush for these because it makes coloring super simple. So I just pick up a little bit of color off of my pencil and then bring it right over to my project and color in my image. I have all the products that I'm using today listed below in the video description and over on my blog. So if you're curious about anything, you can find it all there. So to distress this a little bit more, I'm bringing in some Distress Spritz. This is the walnut stain color, and I'm just spraying this in the corners and along the edges, so that way I get that little bit of a speckled look. Then I'm going to take some of that mica stain and splatter that as well, just to get a little bit of that golden shine. And then finally, using some walnut stain distress ink, I'm going to go over all of this with a little bit of ink blending, and I am tearing the paper in a few spots to get that worn, authentic look on this. I really liked how this turned out. It gave this panel a real vintage feel. It looks like something that you would have found in some vintage luggage, maybe somebody who traveled from Europe or something. I don't know. It just looks really cool. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and this is going to go on a card base that I'm going to have decorated with the Pinnacle Hearts embossing folder. But I want to add a little bit more gold to my project, so I'm going to take this Lisa Horton gold ink pad. This is a metallic ink pad, and it's super juicy and vibrant. It's a beautiful pigment gold. And so similar to how I did the backgrounds before, I'm just applying a little bit of that gold ink across the raised surface of my paper. Then I'm also going to take that gold pad and carefully go over the edges of my ephemera pieces that I've chosen for this card, and I'm going to give them a little bit of a gilded edge. And I love how this adds the perfect little shine across the edges of my paper. So I'm just doing this very gently, and I'm allowing the ink to just kind of start to collect along the front edge of my paper. So similar to how I added some splattering and ink spray to my ephemera piece, I'm going to do the same thing for my background. To add a little bit of distressing to this, I'm going to use the Walnut Stain Distress Spritz, and that's giving me a little bit more of that weathered feel to the gold, tones it down just a little bit. And now I can start assembling all of my ephemera pieces on top. So I'm choosing this dark blue panel, which will look gorgeous behind our floral piece and add a nice bit of contrast. Then I'm going to also layer some smaller ephemera pieces on top. So I adhered my larger ephemera pieces with some Terrific tape. Then I brought in a bit of gold ribbon and I tied that along the bottom of my card. This is just going to accentuate that gold finish and add a little bit of elegance here. So a cute little bow for that. And then I'm using some foam tape to attach a couple of smaller ephemera pieces along the bottom corner. At this point, we're ready to add our greeting. So I'm choosing one of the larger sentiments from the stamp set. This one says Sending Love, and I'm stamping it onto some soft navy cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. This is going to get embossed with gold because I want to continue the gold trim and details that we have across the project. So I used the Simon Says Stamp gold embossing powder, heat set that, and then I will cut this sentiment out before attaching it onto my card project. As I was attaching my sentiment, I did decide I wanted to adjust the placement of my ephemera pieces, so I carefully peeled them off of my card, and I'm going to just reapply them to the project. And I did end up choosing to use the collage medium instead of foam squares to attach the little 50-cent icon, but the postage stamps, I did keep the foam tape behind it just for some dimension. It's amazing how many times I change my mind when I'm creating. So I thought I had a plan, and then by the time I had the sentiment ready, I was like, you know what? I am not happy with this. I need to make some adjustments. And so I was really pleased in the end how this balanced out. Having the sentiment in the bottom left made a lot more sense, and then the postage piece balancing that off to the right forms a nice visual triangle. Well, friends, I hope you were inspired by all the ideas that I've shared today, because there was quite a bit to see in this video. A lot of fun products that are included in the February kit from Simon Says Stamp. If you're not a subscriber, it's a great value because the retail value of this kit is so much more than the price of the subscription. The subscriptions are also no obligation, so if you decide on a given month that you aren't interested in the kit, you can skip it anytime. It's a really great program and it's super inspiring. I love creating with the Simon Says Stamp kits. So I hope that you will check it out. I hope you will try out some of the ideas I've shared. If you don't have the kit, you can still use the ideas that I've shared. Just change out the embossing folder for a different design, for instance, and you can still create the same inky distressed effects that I did. So I hope you will give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it so very much. I'll be back very soon to share more with you all, but until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.